Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Success Sadhana. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today where we continue our series on moods and modes. And today's topic is Decode Your Inner Weather, Goodness, Passion, Ignorance, Learn to Shift the Forecast. With our speaker today, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. I've got around 10 members on Zoom. People are still dialing in. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome back to another episode of Success Sadhana.
Thank you so much, Jam, for a heartfelt welcome and great to see everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in for our afternoon program. It is afternoon now by 2 minutes. And as a refresher, as many are joining now, talking about modalities. They're in Sanskrit called gunas, which is oftentimes translated metaphorically as ropes. And these ropes are what bind us in this world in various ways. The topmost modality in the world out of three is sattva. It's sometimes called the golden chain because it binds us to a sense of happiness within the material world. And then there's rajas, which induces us to endlessly work for the next thing. And then tamas binds us to delusion, laziness, and sleep. Another aspect of the modes we've discussed so far is they're constantly changing, and we'll talk about that today. Like changing guards in a prison. When one takes time off, goes home, the other one comes in to watch over the prisoners and make sure they're bound up in one of three ways. And another metaphor is the gunas are sometimes compared to colored glasses because our consciousness is pure, but when we look through the coloration of our consciousness, colored by the modes, it's called karmatmaka, then we see the world in a particular way because we're looking through the lens of the modes of nature. And sattva is the clearest of the modes. It gives us an understanding more of who we are. Rajas is like red lenses, and we see everything as urgent or desirable, tempting. And tamas is pitch black glasses, completely opaque, and there's confusion, delusion, and self-destruction. And then, of course, we always end with talking about bhakti, which is the force beyond the modes of nature. And a metaphor there given frequently is that the modes are fog-like. And a pedestrian who's caught in fog might lose his or her way while walking. But when the sun comes up, then the sun can burn off the fog and you can see clearly. So there's a way in which by bhakti, the practice of bhakti yoga, one can diminish the effects of the modes and come to complete clarity, pure consciousness. So now that we're here, we have a few minutes. Let's take about 3 of those minutes to do a little short meditation, little short. We'll do a meditation. So if you'd like to participate, just sit up a little straighter than you were a second ago and relax. Close your eyes. I'm going to put on a drone in middle C. And just transfer your awareness to your breath. And try counting 4 counts on the exhale and 4 counts on the inhale to calibrate your breath. And since talking about bhakti as a force which evaporates the modes, The ancient sages talk about the power of sound vibration. And so in this meditation, we'll experiment with the mantra Nitai Gauranga, which has been passed down through many generations as the mantra that opens the heart. So I'll repeat the mantra 5 times. And if you'd like, you can follow behind muted mics. No need to interpret it, just say it and listen to the sound. Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga. Now just take a moment to observe your own consciousness. Notice that you're alive. You're animating the body that you're in. And be aware that you can direct your attention wherever you like. This is your eternal superpower. When we're influenced by the 3 modalities, we have less control over our awareness. Rajas grabs it, tamas puts it to sleep. Goodness opens us to more and more possibilities. And when we can rise above the 3 modalities, we can see ourselves as we are, beyond the temporary material body. And one more time, with full consciousness, we'll say Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga. Bring your awareness back to your breath. Check out your fingers and toes, see if they still work. Then slowly open your eyes and realize that you're somewhere in the cosmos, somewhere on a Zoom call, and we'll come back into the room. And welcome back. So, I hope you had good sadhana. That's a bhakti sadhana. It means it's a practice that you can do every day to go deeper into your own self-awareness, awareness beyond the body. Can be very productive just to take a moment every day, chant the Nitai Gauranga mantra. And here's some philosophy to go with what we're talking about. Everyone okay? Did everyone make it back? Anyone still out there? Vicky's back. BJ's back. MJ's back. Everybody else, we lost them, JM. Oh well. We'll try to speak in such a way that they'll come back. Okay, Zyla had a good meditation. Great meditation. So here we are, decoding our inner weather. It's a metaphor that Krishna uses in the Bhagavad Gītā when he talks about the ways that the world affects us. But mostly the way the world affects us is the way our minds are situated. And that has to do with whether we're in sattva, rajas, and tamas. And if we know that there are surges of each of these modes, we can prepare ourselves. So let's go into it, starting with slide number 3. Anticipate. This is the word that is indicative of what Bhagavad Gītā asks us to do. So anticipate that there will be a fluctuation in the modes. If we think that our journey here in this life will be without fluctuations, then we may be disappointed. If we anticipate fluctuation and we also know where it's coming from, it can be very helpful. Fluctuation means the rise and fall irregularly in number or amount. And an example that my teacher gave when he came to America on a cargo ship, he had noted that on the Pacific Ocean, it was often very calm. Atlantic Ocean. It was very calm, and then an hour later, it'd be a huge storm. Changes rapidly. And the ways of our minds are affected by the modalities, changes constantly. There's a changing of the modalities throughout the day, in fact. The morning hours tend to be more in sattva, the afternoon more in rajas, and the evening more in tamas, darkness. Afternoon, intense activity, morning time, awakening, clarity, peacefulness. Of course, depends what time you get up. If you get up before the sun and watch the sunrise, and you're in a pristine place, that can really help. Also, starting the day with mantra meditation can help out. By the way, how was our session, our mini session of meditation?
Zila said, great meditation.
What was great about it?
Like, just even hearing the tone before you started the chant, like I could feel the reverberations in my body. And it's like super relaxing. Sometimes I feel that when I sit in a really hot car, like when you go and you sit in a really hot car before the AC kicks in, or like, you know, it just felt really good.
That was a poetical, practically, giving examples like that, sitting in a hot car. I like that. I resonate towards and resonate with, I should say, those drones. I use them a lot when I'm speaking for effect. And in meditation, they can be very helpful too. They sort of even out the brain waves. Yeah, thank you very much, Sila. Okay, Lee J. She's in reset mode. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. I want to share how I feel after the meditation. I had a busy morning full of rajas. So I feel doing just a few minutes of meditation in the middle of the day helped me to reset my mode. Like, sometimes the computer, no matter how hard you try, but you just need a reset. That's how I feel.
God, that's such a good example also. Somebody lucky there's an on-off switch for our brain too, and we can resort to that. I had an experience this morning, very busy morning, lots of meetings, early, and then when I went out into our garden, which is kind of an oasis, there are these really beautiful purple flowers that are blooming right now in the back corner of the garden, and they're also letting go in the pathway, which is made out of that decomposed granite. It's sort of a light color, and the purple flowers just falling upon that path. While I was sitting there doing some mantra meditation, I was just encompassed by a sense of sattva, peace, just being there in the moment, the flowers falling and so forth. Relating to Zyla's hot car example, there are times in which we just are in the here and now, and suddenly we realize, oh, I'm alive and I'm here at this moment. And I felt like that was a reset also. So I really appreciate the the example, how to you turn off your computer, turn it back on again, and you see the world in a new light. Thanks, Lee J. Nicholas, what have you got there?
Nicholas says, usually being on one side sees the other side as a dream or a fog.
Can you say more what you mean by that?
Yeah.
Maybe he's not able to talk because
Yeah, or if you can type in, it was not very clear. Are you referring to the slide or are you referring to the meditation
so one
session?
thing I can say from
Can you hear me?
yes, Nicholas, who can hear you.
I was just saying that, like, being in the storm side, it's like very difficult to remember or see clearly that when it was clear. And when you're on the clear side and sunny days, it's hard to remember. It's just like kind of like seeing the cloudy and storms as a nightmare, not actually happen.
I love that. I get that perspective a lot from here in Burlingame because I can see the fog accumulating on the hills. And I know over in Half Moon Bay, Pacifica, mostly Pacifica, it's like a wintry day. Oh, and over here it can be really hot. And I'm over there, it feels oppressive. When I'm over here, I see it and I feel, oh, yeah, what's their problem? Yeah, nice example. Well, anticipation can be very helpful because if we know what to expect, and this is one thing my teacher once said when there was a discussion about the modes and predicting their upsurges and their changes. He said, if you know it's going to rain, bring an umbrella. So be prepared. When you know that there are modalities in the world and they'll affect you in various ways, it's wise to prepare for them so you don't simply work under their control and at their whim because of their changes. So anticipation. So in slide number 4, we also talk about balance. And this is one of the principles of yoga, balance. It's called yukta, remaining balanced in all that you do. In the Gita, Krishna talks about balanced eating. Don't eat too much, don't eat too little. Think about how we are subjected to excesses in this world if we eat too little or if we eat too much. Like, just take salt, for instance. If anybody's been on a diet where you don't eat any salt, of course, it may not be healthy. And if you eat too much salt, it's hard to eat something. If somebody puts a little too much salt in your guacamole, or let's say chili or something like that, you may not be able to even eat it. And if there's too little, it doesn't have that same taste that attracts you to it. So there's a balance point in between. And the art that Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gītā of yoga is learning to work with the modes as they're constantly changing and stay in balance. Balance, according to this definition, means keep or put something in a steady position. So how do you remain steady with the onslaught of these 3 modalities that are coming and going? And this is one of the principles of the world, is this constant flux, and the practice that we're doing brings us into balance because we're anticipating what's going to happen. And we also know we learn how to surf those different modes of nature without being washed away by them. So that brings us to the main teaching, one of the main teachings of the Bhagavad Gītā, which is in slide 5, which is know the modes. And pop quiz, what are the 3 modalities of nature? You could put your answer in the chat box. You could win up to 50 points for this that you can trade in somewhere. What are the question on the floor is, what are the 3 modes of material natures? See if it can name them. I'll give you 10 seconds. 10, 9,
That's
8,
hard
7.
because the spelling, the autocorrect is working against us.
But just put it in English. Either way, English or Sanskrit, either way, it's okay. And by the way, the answer is on the screen. If you want to, it's an open book quiz. So Nicholas put Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. That's correct, 50 points. Radha put goodness, passion, ignorance. That's also correct, 50 points. Zyla said Sadhana, Rajas, Tamas, 45 points because it's Sattva. But anyway, it's the spelling. You're right. It's hard to do. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva means Sat. Sat means you see your real existence. You see that which is always there. And Rajas means red. It means everything's rushed. And Tamas means dark. Anyway, Zyla, I'll give you 50 points. Okay, so these are the 3 modalities. So if somebody stops you today or wakes you up tonight at 1:30 in the morning and says, what are the 3 modes of material nature? You'll say, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And you'll be correct. Hey, you see those pictures? They're indicative of various scenes. And that's part of knowing the modes, is to look, observe, and see what the scene is, and notice what modality is controlling that particular event or that environment. So you see on the left, goodness, kind of relate to nature and forest. Of course, there's mixtures always within everything. You might be in the forest and then see a predatory bird attack a squirrel and tear him in half. And then it won't seem like sattva, probably more like rajas and tamas. And then you see somebody, I was noticing there's combinations here in Burlingame early in the morning when I go for my walk. People are walking back from town and they'll have various things in their hands, telephone, cup of coffee, something like that. And here we see a person on the phone, walking through traffic, passion, ignorance. Guy's down for the count there. Didn't even bother to take off his clothes. He just slumped down and fell asleep. It's probably way past noon or something like that. He forgot, couldn't wake up because he was under the mode of, which mode? Ignorance. That's correct. So let's go a little more. This is under the category of know your modes. So looking at the next slide, this is a description of happiness in the 3 modes. What does that mean? Happiness in the 3 modes. So in goodness, the happiness and goodness is like poison in the beginning and nectar in the end. In the beginning, it seems difficult, hard, almost like you're drinking poison, but in the end, you feel wonderful. Passion, on the other hand, happiness in the mode of passion, it's nectar in the beginning and poison in the end. Totally reversed. Seems like a great idea. The pleasure is intense, it spikes, and then poison. What am I left with? Consequences and hangovers and side effects and so forth. And then in ignorance, it's delusion from beginning to end. There's no reprieve. Can anybody give an example of any of these 3 types of happiness affected by the modes. I'm very interactive today. Sorry, everybody, if you needed to have a break, but it's just the way it is. Anybody relate to goodness being poison into nectar? Oh, look, Ariana opined. Let's hear what she said.
Ariana says eating super unhealthy may feel good in the moment, but not long term.
That's right. That food is a big deal. Like, you could ingest a bag of Cheetos. I don't know what's in those, but it may taste good to your tongue because there's some zestiness to it or something like that. But then you might feel horrible, and the results of eating junk food, you might feel that your veins are clogged up and so forth. I don't want to say anything bad about Cheetos. Maybe they have a healthier version these days. When I was a kid, that's what they were like. What else, Jam?
Yeah, Ariana just repeated that literally happened to me yesterday with chips. Haha.
Aha. Okay. And she's giving it as an example of passion,
Yes.
right? Oh, I see. Ariana's saying that. I thought you were saying that, JF. It literally happened to me with chips. Yeah, yeah, definitely. How about 3 kinds of happiness? Happiness in the mode of goodness. It seems like poison in the beginning, but it's nectar in the end. Like you feel better than you've ever felt. Xyla exercise. Can you say more about that? What's the poison part?
It just is work. So maybe you're like, ugh, you know, right? But then you feel better after.
So what mode are you in when you feel like and then you get into the mode of exercise? What mode do you start from, do you think?
Maybe not happiness or not
Maybe
the
it's
sattva,
like,
maybe.
yeah, maybe in Thomas, because Thomas is body's at rest, they don't want to move and so forth. And then you have to raise yourself up into Rajas to get moving. And it seems like a disturbance and you'd rather be cozy at home or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then later, when your face is a little flushed from exercising, and there's nerve endings are repairing themselves because of all the hormones coursing through your body, and you sit down and you look fantastic, you feel great, and it feels like nectar.
Hmm.
That's happiness. A good example. Thank you very much, Simon. Happiness and mode of goodness. How about ignorance? It's actually not listed as happiness at all, because it's called delusion from beginning to end. Destructive, depressive, dark. Do we even want to talk about this? It's too much, right? Afternoon show, we can't discuss these things.
I guess anything you just can't see the truth about it all, right? You're lying to
Hmm.
yourself the whole way.
I
We're
like
not
that.
ready to accept truth.
Yeah. And certain kinds of intoxicants that, and some self-destructive behavior where people torture themselves out of a sense of self-loathing and things like that. These are all in the mode of darkness. They're delusion from beginning to end. I know sometimes people burn themselves. I saw it when I was a kid. There were teenagers who were prone to burning their arms with cigarettes and things like that. I mean, just saying that there are various ways in which the modalities oppress us, and that seems like a good idea at the time. That's influence of the ignoring red flags. Yeah. Like you mean like MJ, like procrastinating when there's something that needs to be taken care of? That's one. Yeah. Like Warren Zevon, he was a musician. He was always afraid that he might get cancer, so he never went to the doctor. And then he got cancer and he hesitated to go to the doctor, and then he waited too long. In his last interview, he said he was just held back by fear, and sort of that fear was born out of ignorance. Didn't want to hear the C word. So actually owning anything is like goodness at the beginning and I like that. Yeah, say more about that. Can you say anything more about that? Like anything that you've anticipated owning and then it was, yeah.
Yeah, I think anything you get physical things at the beginning, you're happy and it's shiny, it's new, but then after several times it worn out and you have to maintain it, and then it's just like one thing after another, why it's always broken and I have to fix it. I think that's even better if you try to fix it, but usually people just throw it away and then you get another thing, start a new cycle. So yeah, that's what I mean by owning anything. If you're on the hook, you're touched by it, and then the whole cycle starts.
I resonate with that completely. Definitely. And the happiness in the mode of goodness, it could be, it's described in the Bhagavad Gītā when you have a sense that you're the consciousness within the body, you're aware of your own consciousness, and Atma Tushta means self-satisfaction. Nothing else needed. In that moment, I feel enough. And that's the trending into the mode of goodness, where there's a sense of completeness in that light. And then trying to acquire things, I'm grabbing on, holding on, and it's then becomes oppressive. It becomes a problem for me. That's definitely the quality of passion. And MJ said something else.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but also was thinking of relationships for red flags. That is, ignoring a red flag early on in a relationship, later it becomes an issue, usually.
Yeah, definitely. And in relationships, this cultivation of the modes is really important, because what if the relationship's in the mode of passion? It's only there for superficial reasons. Then it can be like nectar in the beginning, poison in the end. And it's one of the reasons people try to make commitments to each other. It's more in the mode of goodness, that no matter what happens, we're going to stick together because we're anticipating fluctuation in the modes of nature and so forth. So it's tacitly understood that these fluctuations are going to come. Great examples. Thank you, everybody. Here's another set for your consideration. Again, we're in the section called Know Your Modes. And when you know your modes, then you can anticipate and then you can fortify yourself. Here's the 3 kinds of determination affected by the modes of nature. So goodness is described as unbreakable determination. It's not dependent on the external circumstances like passion, which depends on the result. I'm determined as long as I get what I want, otherwise I quit. And ignorance means dreaming. I used to have a friend, I don't know where he is right now, but he always had ideas that were kind of dreamy about what he could do or what other people could do. I said, well, why don't you do it? And he wasn't willing to lift a finger to do what he wanted to do. He was deeply affected by ignorance. And I can relate to that. I've had many experiences in my own life when I had thoughts and I couldn't act on them. Ignorance, you dream about it, but you can't really take action and move forward, which would be the mode of passion. And of course, in determination in the mode of goodness, you're working for a much higher cause. For instance, duty. Why are you doing this? It's my duty. You're doing it out of honor or a sense of it's supposed to be done, therefore I'm the one to do it. It's more trending towards goodness. Has anybody ever experienced determination in the mode of ignorance in the last day or two? You see something lying there and it's like, I'm not picking that up. Just let it sit there. Yeah, DJ, Vicky, you said yes.
Yes. wasn't necessarily thinking of the last day or two, but I tend to be idealistic and come up with all sorts of plans and have a gap of discrepancy between idea and execution.
Jam, what did she say? I couldn't hear.
Yeah, sorry, it was not very clear.
Uh-oh.
Yes,
Sorry
Vicky, I
about
think,
that.
yeah, go ahead, Vicky.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just saying that not necessarily in the last day or two, but in general, I tend to be very idealistic and I come up with all sorts of plans, but don't necessarily, there's a gap of just, there's a discrepancy between execution and idea.
It makes sense. I could totally relate. Utopianism, idealism, and then when there are utopian ideas, maybe it's hard to act on them. There's no next step. And no matter what we do, it's not enough. So these are symptoms given in the Bhagavad Gītā, and there are many more about the attitudes we have, the interactions we have, the world environments that we're in, and knowing the mode is helpful in navigating it. Now, it's not just knowing it that counts, but it's also knowing what to do when confronted by the modes of material nature. So now we're going to get into what to do about our interaction with the modes of nature. And I'm going to relay to you the advice given in Bhagavad Gītā. And this in the next slide. And it may sound commonplace, but one of the main ways to deal with the modalities is to tolerate them because they come and go. And if you don't like the mode that you're being assailed by at a particular moment, then if you persevere and you keep going, of course, that would require a little bit of sattva, but the modes will eventually change. And tolerate means to be capable of continued subjugation to an environmental condition without averse reaction. So a person who anticipates the modes, knows what they look like when they come, and is able to recognize that this will pass and doesn't overreact to them. It's not an adverse reaction. The adverse reactions entangle one more, but if you're able to tolerate it and let it pass, like a storm. When a storm comes, or when there's a particular geopolitical event that's happening, we can become so absorbed in it that our whole body and mind becomes affected. Or we can learn to tolerate because it's going to move on. That's why the mantra, "This too will pass," is very helpful. In fact, at the very beginning of this show, when we started on Zoom, it was during the beginning point. It was the beginning point of the pandemic. And we talked a lot about this mantra, "This too shall pass." And that's how the material world works. Things come and go constantly. Thing doesn't come and go is us, because we're the constant, we're the consciousness observing the things coming and going. So tolerating. An example, you may be in a situation where you didn't get exactly what you wanted. For instance, you jumped on a tram and everyone sat down before you could get a seat, but you almost had the seat, you had it saved in your mind and somebody took it from you. You only have 15 minutes to go. You could, on the tram and in the show too, you could become very disturbed and anxiety, or you could just let it go and tolerate it. probably, if we counted all the situations we encounter in one day in a 24-hour period that challenge us in a way, we might make a notation about whether or not we tolerated it. What if somebody says something to you that is discordant? Now, I'm not saying tolerate every single thing, because there's responses needed and some things need to be discussed. I'm just saying there are minor offenses and there are changes that take place. And this is the advice: learn to tolerate, because you find that they move on. And there's one of the ways that one navigates the modes of nature, remembering that they come and go, and staying tolerant despite the fact that one feels affected by the modes. And in the next slide, I'm going to read to you verbatim a verse translated from Sanskrit from the Bhagavad Gītā that talks about this sense of tolerance in the face of the modes. Ready? Vicky nodded her head. Okay. Lee J nodded her head. Okay, here we go. I'll read it. They who do not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who are unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who are situated in the self and regard alike happiness and distress. They who look upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, or equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who are steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treat alike both friend and enemy, and who have renounced all material activities, such persons are said to have transcended the modes of nature. Which part of that stuck out to you in your mind? Our phone lines are open now with operators ready to take your calls. You can put it in the chat box or you can speak up in the Zoom room. Anything in that paragraph that struck you? I can play drone while I'm waiting for your answers.
Hearing 100%. Connected to iPhone 237.
That's a drone to stimulate your thought process. Wow, the drone worked.
Subramanian said, unwavering and undisturbed.
Unwavering and undisturbed. What did you like about that, Subramanian? It's kind of amazing to be in a situation and not be disturbed by it, right?
Yeah, it reflects being steady.
Yes. Can you think of any, you don't have to mention what they are, but can you think of any situations that are just seem to be disturbing during which you might tolerate?
I presume it happens all the time. I mean, at work, you're under pressure and
At work it happens, yeah.
to deliver and things like that. And sometimes things go right, sometimes things go wrong.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, not to be upset by them or just take it in stride and move on.
Nice. It's amazing when someone's able to do that too, isn't it? I mean, I've observed people in pressing situations and somehow they're unflappable. I like that term, unflappable.
I think doing the reverse of getting disturbed situation worse.
Yeah.
Doesn't solve any. I mean, you can't control what's going on, but you can control your attitude to it.
I love that.
And having a steady attitude definitely helps you rather than getting worked up about it and making yourself unhappy.
Just hearing about it makes me want to try it. Thank you very much, Subramanian. We have a couple more, JM.
Yes, Sundar says being neutral to the modes.
How do you mean that, Sundar? Sundar's in the middle of a annual general meeting.
I think most of us are muted. That's the problem, and we don't realize when we are talking.
Oh, I see. Being neutral.
Sorry, Krishna Prabhu. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. I know this is a working meeting we got going here.
no, I like that point because especially when we experience mode of goodness, we experience happiness and being being lighthearted, and that's a good experience to have. But when there is the experience of mode of passion and ignorance, it's a very heavy experience, and it's not a desirable experience. But this verse talks about being unwavering in both elimination, attachment, and delusion. So that's the tendency is to basically get out of, let's say we experience mode of passion or mode of ignorance. The tendency is to try to get out of that or try to resist that because it's not a great feeling, right, Prabhu? So I completely don't understand how it's neutral to these modes, but I do understand in some sense that you be situated in the self, but at the same time we try to get out of mode of passion and ignorance if we feel they're infecting us. Correct?
Very true. And this verse at the end says, such persons are said to have transcended the modes. Past tense, it means they've risen above the modes. So it's a symptom of somebody who's not affected by them, that they could tolerate something. For instance, if someone says a harsh word to you or criticizes you in public or something like that, it's a symptom of transcendence where you might note it, but it doesn't spike your blood pressure suddenly because how dare they? I mean that's not so easy to do. It means somebody has a perspective that is very different from the idea that I am now defamed and so forth. This verse points out that somebody's not disturbed despite those things. And in the next slide, we're going to talk about ways to fortify ourselves so that we're not affected by the modes of nature. Thanks, Sundar.
Thank you, Prabhu.
JM, what else?
Yeah, Lijay says treat alike both friends and enemy.
Treat alike both friends and enemy. That'd be a neat trick, huh? It's one of the symptoms. Somebody's able to not consider friend, enemy, and so forth. We can't artificially do it, but it is a symptom. Somebody's risen above the modes of nature because they don't have a vested interest in the material world. So they see neutrally. They have a neutral vision. And one last one.
Yeah, Vicky says equal toward the desirable and undesirable who have renounced all material activities. I like how the verse implies that renunciation doesn't mean not engaging, but rather the whole paragraph is a guide for proper engagement.
Yeah. And it's inevitable while we're in the material world that these modalities will have their effects on us. And so this is advice given from a sober source so that when we are in the midst of various movements in the modes, we can become aware of it and learn how to not be overcome by them. And now the next section, in the last few minutes that we have, is the fortify. So just as a review, we started with anticipate. That means know that the modes are going to affect you. We're in the midst of them. And then we talked about balance. And then we talked about knowing the modes. So you can recognize what they are when they do come to you. We talked about different kinds of happiness. We talked about the modes of nature, how they affect determination. And we talked about the practice of tolerance, knowing that they're going to come and go, and this too shall pass. Then I read a verse from the Bhagavad Gītā that talked about the mindset of somebody who's transcended the modes of nature. And in this slide, number 10, we have fortify. Fortify means literally to provide a place with defensive works as protection against attack. So if we take the modes as attackers who are assailing us, then it would be wise to fortify ourselves so that we're not overcome by the assailant. And for that, the wisdom literatures, Bhagavad Gītā, etc., Srimad Bhagavatam give this kind of advice of how to stay above the modes of nature, how to rise above them when they come to us, when we feel their effects, or how to always stay above the modes of material nature. So 3 practices that anyone can do are listed there on the bottom, almost in small type. One is to chant. We started by chanting a mantra, the Nitai Gauranga mantra. It's a kind of fortification to take your time to do your mantra meditation. Because once you have gone inwardly and you have an experience, then you're not as affected by the modes of material nature. And if you're ever affected, you can't solve it from the same level of consciousness, the mode of nature. So try to rise above it. And you can do that by chanting. It's one of the pieces of advice given by the golden monk, who advised that to get through all the changes of life, learn how to constantly be in the transcendental vibration. And that means take the mantra with you and practice it. If you feel overwrought, then chant. Don't complain, chant. And the next one is eating. You can change your modes by what you eat. So there's eating in the mode of ignorance, there's eating in the mode of passion, there's eating in the mode of goodness, and there's transcendental eating. So transcendental eating has to do with the way you prepare your food, the kind of food you prepare, and making it as a transcendental experience. Not culinary necessarily, but spiritual. There's a whole science to that. It's called prasadam. It means you see food out of gratitude, that it's coming to you from a higher source. You can't create it yourself. And then when you prepare it, you're preparing it not for yourself, but you're thinking of making it as an offering back to the source. And when you do that, the way you eat and what you eat has an effect on your consciousness, and it can lift you from tamas or out of rajas, even past sattva, into the transcendental state. So eating is important. And third is association. We become like whom we associate with. So if you associate with people who are in the mode of ignorance, then pretty soon you'll be like that guy in the picture back there. Remember that picture, JM? The guy was just crashed out in his clothes. He didn't even put his pajamas on or whatever, and couldn't get up. If that's your best friend, you may end up like that too. So if you find people who have risen above the modes of material nature in their lifestyle, then you'll likely pick up those same kind of habits, because this is called sangha. Their habits become a part of your life. And habits in the mode of ignorance, passion, goodness, or transcendental habits, those are what you want to rise above the 3 modes of material nature. Let's look at the very last slide. Reflection time. Anything that you heard that stuck with you for this session? Could be one sentence or less. Oh, look, Vicky's got a reflection all ready to go.
Yeah, Vicky, do you want to summarize that?
Yes. Sorry about my audio if there are issues.
I'll read it because your audio is in outer space. It's coming
I
from
can,
some satellite dish.
yeah, I can read it.
Okay.
I like how balance is defined by keeping or putting something in a steady position. I remember a while back you had taught us that balance doesn't necessarily mean stillness, but rather coming back to the center. Therefore, balance is a constant act, not a single phenomenon. I can see how this implies steadiness with the definition of tolerate, be capable of continued subjugation to an environmental condition without adverse reaction. Because we can assume continued subjugation, but in pursuit of unbreakable determination, in the mode of goodness, we can also assume the capability of withstanding the onslaught, and that's a certain steadiness or umbrella.
That was like a PhD thesis in one paragraph. Well done, Vicky. And no AI used to create that either. That's how she rolls. Okay, Ariana said nutrition matters. I'm going to look up the word nutrition. Nutrition. First, I have to know how to spell it right. Nutrition. Nutrition means the process of providing or obtaining the food necessary for health and growth, food or nourishment, and the branch of science that deals with nutrients and nutrient. It comes from nutrere, to feed, to nourish. Yeah, nutrition matters. What we feed ourselves matters in our consciousness. And JM?
Yeah, MJ says, the whole session makes me want to read the Bhagavad Gītā in entirety.
Okay, you could do it in 1 week. How many pages a day do you have to read to finish the Bhagavad Gītā within a month? It's in an app. You can look it up online. It's called Be a Sage Page by Page. If you want to see how many pages you have to read of the Bhagavad Gītā to finish it in any given amount of time, I made an app for that. There it is. You can figure it out. 24 pages for a month? MJ, there you go. If you want to finish it in 1 month, you can do 24 pages a day. Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Panda, Sharat, Nirja, Binu, Ariana, SN, I think that's Sundar, MJ, Sharat, Manu, oh, everything's changing now, Nicholas, Subramanian, Zaila, Arvin, Sudhira Madhava, Pradeep, thank you, Vicky, thank you, JM, for keeping us going. You're the person who is the determination in the mode of goodness. And thank you, Lijay, as usual. There's a way we could go away in the mode of transcendence. The yogis do it high in the Himalayas. They raise their hands high in the air to show their sincerity. And they say this phrase, Hari Bol, which means stay transcendental. You want to try it? I'm going to do it.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, Hari Bol.
Haribo!
Haribo!
Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Very good.